Chile's inflation reached a 20-month low today, so is Chile on track for a recovery or recession? Joining me is Benjamin Sierra from Scotiabank. Benjamin, there is no sign of significant improvement in Chile's growth. Following this, do you expect the Central Bank of Chile to conduct further monetary stimulus? And what do you make of the data released today?
In the case of the central bank, we're expecting that for the next current month policy meeting, which is going to take place on December 17th, we're expecting they are going to increase the rate by 25 basis points. That is to say, they are going to leave the monetary policy rate at 3.5%. Yeah, as a first probability. But we think that the probability of changes is very linked or submitted, or how you can say it, is very conditioned by the opinion of the market, by the published opinion. So what are going to say the economists in the press is going to be very important, and what are going to say the money desk is also going to be very important before the decision of the central bank. Of course, we are considering as almost a done deal that the Federal Reserve is going to increase the rate by 25 basis points the previous day, that is to say December 16th. But consider that data, I think that is going to be probably the last hike in the Chilean monetary policy rate for a long time. Why? Because I think the activity data is weak enough to take a more wait-and-see attitude than to be increasing the rate. Economic activity for October, the data for today, the activity that was released today, was also at the bottom of the market range expectation. The market range expectation was between 1.5, but just one analyst was at 1.5%. Most of them were between 1.6 and 2.3%. Personally, I was expecting a result closer to 1%. But I was in a rare abyss in the market in this case. Result was higher than what I was expecting. But in general, the result was considered for the market, or is going to be considered by the market, as very weak. That is the most important point.
The strength of the labour market and increased fiscal spending has helped Chile avoid recession. But can this continue to be avoided, and is economic recovery on the cards?
We are the trend of the growth that you can deduce, you can read from this aggregate data, is that we are going to have a recovery weaker than expected in the coming quarters. Especially during the first half of the next year, the recovery will be very weak. Weaker than expected. We're expecting for the next year growth of just 2%. Of course, it may change in the coming weeks, but it is going. Why? Because in our opinion, the headwinds for the Chilean recovery are more important than the tailwinds. For example, we are concerned that the monetary policy rate is going to be still expensive, but better than recovery for the next year is expected to be weaker than most of the market was forecasting so far. I think that is not going to be the case, because the trend growth will be enough to keep something between 1.5% and 2% during the next year. But of course, we can have some months when the economic trend may be weaker than expected.
The Chilean peso has been extremely vulnerable to falling copper prices. The currency hit a 12-year low last week. Copper prices have risen on the back of the weaker dollar. In coming weeks, the dollar is set to be closely watched. So with this in mind, what can we expect from the Chilean peso?
In that case, our forecast is very simple, but very complicated, if you want to say. High volatility will stay there for a long time, but not very dramatic changes in the trend. Within the current values of the exchange rate are close to the equilibrium, and the market has already considered the copper price, a lower copper price, rates, differentials, and risks. But the last factor is very important. Risk is going to be increasing during the next 2 or 3 months for some currencies like the Chilean peso, the value of the US dollar, of course. But in the region, it's going to be important also to keep in mind what is going to happen with the Brazilian situation. Brazil and that may cause some troubles for our currencies, referring not just to the Chilean peso, but Peruvian currency, the Colombian currency, perhaps in a much less extent to the Mexican peso.
Well, Benjamin, thank you for your insights. That's all from me, but keep watching Duke TV throughout the week for all the latest market moves.